And we're live. Good evening, guys. It's Gina Ifoe, the one and only African superstar, back at it again. I decided to come live to discuss this topic because, living abroad and being a product of America is something that never yes. Whenever things happen in America, in this environment, I'm all people always want to discuss it with me. People always want to get my opinion and all those things. So I want to talk about this topic. Big shout outs to the African Superstar family, guys. Get into the chat room when you come in, like the stream. Tonight I'm going to talk about what's up, Jennifer Edie. I see you on Code Baby SMP. Big shout outs to you. Thank you for being the first there. Hope you can hear me well. Hello. Can you guys hear me? Please let me know. Big shout outs to the African Superstar family. Tonight's topic is further proof that America is not what it's cracked up to be. Lies, lies, and more lies. To a lot of people in the international community, America represents a lot of things, a lot of propaganda. Hello. A lot of false things that those of us that let's see, having some network problems today. I don't know why. My service is not that good where I am currently. Um, and this propaganda has, been broadcast for decades now all around the world, having people believe certain things about the US. When I first moved abroad in 2017, a lot of the things that I was saying, I remember people blatantly um, objecting to what I was saying or thinking that I was exaggerating or, just contesting with me. People here in England, I remember, oh, it can't be that bad. Oh, no, I don't, I've never heard this before and all these kind of things. And what is now happening is just proof of that. One of the biggest things that America boasts and promotes is freedom of speech. Now, obviously, the current popular topic is what happened to this gentleman, Chris Kirk. Everybody has heard, and a lot of people have seen the video. I've seen the video, and I heard about it breaking news yesterday. In as much I don't know or follow him, I mean, I kind of can take a gander at what his mantra is like. I don't think that um, having an opinion merits what happened to him. And, it's unfortunate and it's crazy. It's something that people that choose to be very vocal have to be mindful of, especially in that environment. These are, again, some of the things that led up to me doing what I did, knowing that I couldn't probably peacefully coexist in that environment with the type of opinions that I had, just not feeling safe about being in that environment. I remember, prior to my move, there have been like a lot of questionable deaths of members that were in the Black Lives Matter movement. People mysteriously dying, them saying it was suicides. We after a while we can kind of recognize some of these strange things that happen and know that there was probably foul play involved, with a lot of these situations. And what it really boils down to is America is not what it's cracked up to be. America is not what it promotes. America is not what it advertises. America is not the land of the free. um, it's not a safe place. It's not a fair place. It's not a just place. Whether or not it's the land of opportunity is arguable. Just a lot of the things that it promotes. And, I'm fortunate to be someone who doesn't have to wait for fallout to know that it's impending. I'm very, very grateful to my ability to see things and see the progression of an environment and know that, this is not going to get better. Hello. First trivia question. Is the situation going to get better in America, guys? Yes or no? First trivia question. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. I see you guys watching, but I see only one in the chat room. So take a minute out and be on code. Don't be the weak link. Don't be the weak link today. The situation is not going to improve in America. It's actually been getting more deplorable as time goes on. And what that means is, if, you can't necessarily change or impact a situation, the next obvious thing is to move on. That's the conclusion I came to a long time ago. It was kind of the process of seeing what has happened to so many people in my likeness in that environment, more specifically prolific people. When we look at prolific Black people, prolific Black Americans, in that setting, all of them met violent ends. All of them met tragic ends. All of them faced significant hardship. No matter which side of the coin they were on. If they tried to play by the rules or if they tried to bulldoze, if they tried to integrate or they tried to separate. And I realized that, perhaps changing environments may have been beneficial for them. Do you think only Jennifer Edie understood the trivia question? Hello. Guys, I'm going to pause and let you guys get on code. Let's get some people in the chat room. Let's get the likes up and let's get somebody on code. Hello. Jennifer's not the only one that can hear me. Hello. First trivia question. Is America going to get better? Yes or no? Jennifer Edie was the only one who answered. She said no. And I agree with her. Centuries of what has been going on, specifically with our people, with Black people, should tell us this. And shout outs to you, foundational Black Americans, and you ADOS people. You see, sidebar. This actually lets you guys know how irrelevant your movement is. Because this gentleman that just got killed, he had become an international representative for his movement. And if your message is really valid, you should be scared of what could potentially happen because America's lawless, It's violent. Okay. We know that there's no justice for the average man. Okay. Justice per se, it's a money game. If your movement was threatening or, if it was relevant, they will be taking you out. They don't even acknowledge your movement because that's how irrelevant your movement is. But if you actually did get momentum, you should know. Because see, if you're smart, you pay attention to that white on white action. Hello. That white on white action should let you know what you could expect. Because if they're ready to get like that for them, they surely are ready to get like that for us. And you're merely just biding time. You're just in their environment. Okay, you're dependent on them for all your resources and your day-to-day daily bread, your job, your money, your housing. If you think about it, it's a very vulnerable place to be. Because you depend on them for everything. And if they decide to turn against you, big shout out to the African Superstar family. Where you guys at? I need to see you in the chat room. Shout outs to Go Taste and See. Yes, sweetheart. I had to come in on this topic because a lot of people have been, here in the UK, my friends online. Wow, did you hear about this guy? Did you do this? None of it surprises me, guys. None of it surprises me. And there's more to come. There's more to come. You see, because this is another fallacy that America promotes, all this individualism where people feel like, they're the judge and jury. They can do what they want to do whenever they want to do it. You see, if you're smart, you can transpose yourself into various people's shoes. Okay, you can parallel yourself, especially if you are someone who's relevant. If you're someone who's relevant and you see what happens to other people that are moving like you or doing similar things like you, and you see what happens to them. Okay, this particular gentleman was vocal about his conservative Christian, racist mantra. I mean, come on, guys. If you're a Black American, you lived in the US, you know how the vast majority of them see us or their opinions of us. Okay. What has kept a lot of them at bay was, potential consequences, the public reception of them, their image. That's what's kept the silent majority basically in line. When those parameters no longer exist, we've seen with Donald Trump coming into office, a particular escalation in these areas because now they can take off their mask and now they can be vocal and now they can be, very visible in their feelings. The sentiments have always been there. We've always known it. It's been like that. It's been like that my whole life. It's been like that the lives of, my ancestors, predecessors. I mean, we know what it is. And honestly, I don't know what it's going to take for some of our people to come to the realization of the situation. This is further proof that America is not what it's cracked up to be. Okay. The math is not mathing, as they say. What's up? P. Rowe, I see you there. Thank you for answering the trivia question. The U.S. is not going to improve, guys. I'm sorry. The U.S. is not going to improve. Okay, if you think it's bad now, I think probably most of my audience is 30 years and older, people that have grown up in America. You've seen the deterioration. You've seen the violent crime increase. You've seen the racial construct deteriorate even further. You've seen the lack of family cohesion. You've seen the chaos in our community. You've seen all of these things over the past few decades. The question that you have to ask yourself is, do I really want to be in potential harm's way? And for those of you guys, again, that I say, you could liken yourself to an influencer or a social media person or an activist. Okay, whether or not you can empathize with this particular gentleman, you should see the red flags. Okay, conflicting views. What that can actually mean? I understand that this guy, his bark is probably bigger than his bite because a lot of people that talk a lot of stuff can't back it up. I see some of his remarks being an advocate for, gun rights and all this kind of stuff. And some might say you live by the gun, you die by the gun. But I'm just going to say, I feel that, for America that represents and prides itself on freedom of speech, their underwear is showing. Because this guy's not got violent with anybody. He's just been out there voicing his opinion. And he pulls huge crowds, as you could see where he got assassinated. He was in a crowd of, it looked like probably thousands of people that share in his sentiments. And according to the doctrines of the US, he should be able to do that. He should be able to do that. The way I should be able to do that. But any of us that grown up in America know it's not true. Huh? Freedom of speech is limited to a select few. And usually accompanied by wealth and position and power. Hello. Big shout outs to the family. Leland, thank you. I hear you. Good. I'm glad you can hear me. Good. Because y'all need to be in the chat room. Hello. Big shout outs to the family. All right. Coach Kiara, it's good to see you, sweetheart. No, it's not going to get better, guys. And this is what I have really honestly been trying to communicate to people that have been paying attention to me over these years. It's time for you to strategize your future, knowing the situation you're in. And yes, I recognize, well, we can all, yeah, okay. I've literally been on social media since 2013. I moved in 2017. I mean, we're coming up damn near a decade. And I have been, aggressively promoting my people, the people that this message resonates to. Please consider your options, prepare yourself, position yourself, because it's only going to get more intense. And I can guarantee you that the American diaspora and American expats and all that stuff that are living abroad right now, as they look back and they hear about these situations and all of this kind of thing, they are very, very relieved that they made the decisions that they made. Big shout out to African Goddess. I see you with that super chat, sweetheart. Thank you so much for being the first and only, one and only super chat currently in the building. Big shout out to you. Yes, I see you. So I had to come and talk about it because obviously people always want to, they associate me with the States and they want to know what I think. And, a lot of times my reply to them is, these are some of the reasons that I've made the decisions I've made. I mean, I just don't find it to be a safe environment. And I know it's not going to get better. So I had to strategize what I was going to do. And, a lot of times we don't realize how critical the decisions that we decide to make, how that ripples in our family, how that impacts our kids, how that can either, aid or abet our future decisions. Realistically, if we talked about a burning building, okay, if we talk about a burning building, shout out to my UK viewers. A few years ago, there was a big tragedy here in the UK called the Grenfell Tower. Okay, any of the UK people that are here, you guys know about the Grenfell Tower. Let me see a number one. And basically there was a tower block of apartment buildings. They were supposed to kind of be fireproof as they were. And they were supposed to be built in a way that if there was a fire, because it was a tower, that the fire would kind of just be clamped in a particular unit. Well, unfortunately, they used some cheap materials on the building. Hello, these contractors are all the same worldwide. They want to save money and make a profit. And they had put this clad on the external building. Okay. And it was very, 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 it was like an accelerant. So the fire ended up creating a huge tragedy. A lot of people were killed. It rapidly spread because of this cladding on the outside of the building. I think the fire began on one of the lower levels of the building, and it spread rapidly, and consumed the building. And a lot of people, especially on the upper levels, were killed and were not able to get out. You see, if we use that illustration of the burning building, very few of you guys would see the burning building and go into the burning building. Now, obviously, I know some of my viewers, you guys are heroes. And you might try to go in there, save your cat, go back for your relatives, that kind of thing, whatever. Most of us are going to look at a burning building and not go back inside, because we're going to know that, the probability of us losing our lives or getting injured is high to enter a burning building. Why do we look around at what's happening in our environments and never calculate that it could be us? Why do we see the outcome of so many people? And what blows my mind as well is for Black people. We see what happens to other Black people. We see police brutality. We see discrimination in the office. We see our kids getting manhandled and profiled. We see all the missing young Black men and women. We know about the organ trafficking. You know what I'm saying? We know about the unfair judicial system. We see all this stuff day in and day out, and somehow we disassociate ourselves. We disassociate ourselves as if any of these people had an inkling it was going to be them or had a desire for them. You see, and that's why this thing that happened to this gentleman is very relevant. It's very relevant, to, like I said, people that are outspoken, people that are activists, people that are expressive, people that have controversial opinions. Because when you're in that kind of setting and people just decide they don't agree with your message and they feel like you should die, and they feel like they're going to do it. And like I said, when that white on white crime gets going on, when that white on white crime gets going on, y'all should know. It's serious. It's serious. Because they can't even try to pin this on a Black person. We know who the perpetrator was. So this kind of stuff, guys. I mean, I think it's been within maybe the last year. They've also killed a few, governors and politicians. I mean, and that's the thing again that America boasts, is the land of the free and its freedom of speech. All men are created equal and all this kind of stuff that is in the Constitution and part of the doctrine and part of the propaganda of the U.S., but it's not matching up. It's not matching up. Big shout outs to the African Superstar family, guys. What's up? I'm talking about this today. This is just what I have to say about it because, people want to know my opinion. It doesn't surprise me. This is what I've been saying about the U.S. like my whole life. And the more vocal I became, the more I realized that it was an oxymoron for me to be in that environment and have this opinion. And I remember back in the days, I would, I've been a big critic of the U.S. And, people would say, well, if you feel like that, you can get out. Or if you feel like that, you shouldn't be here. And I thought to myself, you know what? You're absolutely right. And I put my efforts into making that the reality because, being in the midst of that environment and constantly criticizing it or having controversial opinions, I mean, your life is at stake. And if this situation don't prove it, I don't know what it's going to take. Because like I said, that white on white crime, that's a whole nother level. And, so as always, I want to encourage you guys to move in a particular way, especially those of you that are planning your escape, those of you that are planning, your international options. Now is not the time to ever be an evangelist. There comes a time when you just need to keep quiet, focus on your game plan, and get out. You don't want to draw attention. You want to keep a low profile. Okay, let them feel that they know. Let them feel that they're right. You're having confrontations with people. Some of you guys are very, very aggressive. You do road rage. You do arguments in the line at Walmart. You got to be first. You got to have an opinion. This ain't the time. This is not the time. Focus on the future goals. You know what I'm saying? Future on the focus goal. Focus on the future goals. Big shout outs, guys. Let me get into these comments. Hello, hello, hello. I'm in the building today. Further proof that America is not what it's cracked up to be. I did see that. I got a message from Sister Yah, letting me know that a threat went out to the HBCUs. See, this situation that just went down, it don't have nothing to do with the HBCUs, but they wanna get us involved. You see, and this is what I'm talking about in regards to you can't sit in water and not be wet. You see what I'm saying? You want to be in this situation and act like it don't apply to you. You want to just mind your own business. It don't work like that. You know what I'm saying? It don't work like that. Big shout out to Jennifer Edie is in the chat room, and I appreciate her today. Yes, thank you so much. Big shout out to the African Superstar family, guys. I'm talking about current events. Everybody has heard about what happened to that gentleman yesterday. And, let's see here. P. Rodusa says Kirk was collateral damage, Trump causing distractions from the Epstein files. I don't know. Go taste and see. Currently in Las Vegas. So much drama here in the States, by the way, from Northeast Ohio. Yeah, I know. I can just imagine. African Goddess. Shout outs to my members only. You see, members only are designated by that circle next to their name. They get behind the scenes content, extra vlogs, early access to music, etc., etc. If you're interested in members only, you can hit the join button and you'll be able to get access to the members only playlist. African Goddess says, white people not out on the street protesting in the USA the way they are in UK, so people really at risk. Yeah, currently I'm in the UK. I've been posting about the tube strike all week, which has been very, very crazy. For context, over 4 million people use the London transport system every day, and they've been forced above ground because the underground subway trains, which are also known as the tube here, they went on strike on Monday, and it has been unbelievable. Journeys that should take like 30 minutes are taking hours. Me personally, I've had to travel a few times this week for business, and yeah, it's definitely impacted my commute as well. I think African Goddess are probably scared to come out. I think they're probably scared to come out because, I mean, a lot of people in the US are armed and they just decide when they want to react to things. And that's just not good. There has to be some mutual ground. Big shout out to Zoo and Shayna. I see you there. What's up, sweetheart? Good to see you. Thank you so much. Yes, yes, yes. I'm trying to get through these comments. Michael Pan says America is getting worse and it is better to leave this country and head to the African continent or move overseas. I'm sorry, period. I mean, obviously, maybe I have a biased opinion because that's the option that I chose, but I just really can't see any other viable option. You know, if I give you guys the illustration of knowing that the building is on fire, seeing that the building is on fire, none of you, very, very few of you would get back into that building. Like I said, I mean, obviously, I know, hey, out of 100, maybe one or two might attempt to be a hero. Oh, I'm going to save my cat. My grandmother's in there, kind of stuff. The vast majority of you would see a burning building and not go in. Even if maybe you had valuables in there, you would make the ultimate decision that, you know what, I just can't go. When I talk about that illustration, I have valuables in America. I have family in America. I have friends there, my sister's there, my mom is there. That is, for all intents and purposes, I mean, currently where I have spent the longest amount of my life. Over 3 decades of my life I spent in the US. All my education is there, that kind of thing. But at a point, I just had to make that decision for myself that, I need to be safe. I need to position myself. And like I said, just taking into accountability my activism of sort, my, visibility and my vocalness, being there is wild. Do you guys remember that gentleman? I believe he was in Texas. That was, I forget his name. I know he was a Haitian guy. If any of you guys can recall his name, please put it in the chat. He was a Haitian brother, and he was in his apartment, and a white female officer that he had been dealing with, she came into his apartment and she shot him. And she tried to, make it seem that she thought he was an intruder and all this stuff. And I remember that there was a neighbor that testified against that police officer. And kind of let them know that, they had a romantic thing and she wanted more with this gentleman and he didn't want it. And so basically, the woman maliciously did that to him, which is obvious because nobody just goes into a wrong apartment. I mean, first and foremost, your key ain't going to work. Hello. And her story was just completely bogus. She went into the wrong apartment and found, this guy eating ice cream and thought he was an intruder. Just crazy. But I don't know if you guys remember, right after that case, the person who testified against her was found, he was killed in the parking lot. And they said that, this incident was due to, it was like a drug trafficking kind of thing. And I mean, obviously, we know he testified against the police officer. I believe they found her guilty, some kind of minor sentence. And this witness turns up dead, a day later. Come on, connect the dots. You see, and these are the kind of things that go on when you want to contest the system and you want to be a cowboy and you want to think that, I mean, I can't tell you how many Black Americans I've heard tell me, oh, we got rights, we can, if I'm overseas, I can contact the embassy to come and get. I'm thinking, bro, that stuff does not pertain to us, and y'all should know that by now. Does it pertain to us by law? Yeah, because we're quote unquote American citizens, passport holders and taxpayers and all that. Yeah. By law, by paper, in theory, these things apply to us. Are they really tangible? Is it really in effect is the real question. Is it really going to be applicable in this situation? Is it going to really be there for us? And the answer to a lot of those questions, if you ask them and you're honest, is no. Is there a difference between the way white Americans and Black Americans are treated and, foreign Americans? Is there a difference? There absolutely is. Okay, you call the cops as a white American and say you have, a black intruder, or, a black suspicious person in your neighborhood, you're going to get emergency services in a few minutes. If you're black and say, hey, I have some intruders, the response is totally different. And if you're smart, even though these things are not right, and we know they're not right, and we know they're not fair, you have to you have to think about these situations in regards to yourself. I know for a fact I'm not going to be treated the same way as a white American, female in most situations. I know it. I've seen it my whole life in her situations to know. So I'm not going to put myself into situations expecting a response that is not likely. And we, in that environment, albeit we are American by birth and documents and all this stuff, guys, we do not get the same regard as others. And we just have to come to grips with that and know the danger that surrounds us in those environments. Period. What's up, Global Green Book? Big shout out to you. Yeah, I had to come in and talk on this topic because too many people that send it my way. And I'm like, you know what? Let me go ahead and just say, I'm not the type to say, ha, 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 I told you so. But this stuff doesn't surprise me because these are the facts and realities about the U.S. that I accepted a long time ago that ultimately influenced my decisions. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just came to the conclusion, I don't want to be a hashtag. I don't want to be a hashtag. I don't want to be a rest in peace with wings behind my head and a little halo and people rocking t-shirts. I don't, that's not the future that I want. And not to say that obviously there's not danger in situations in any location. Of course there is. But again, going back into that burning building, seeing it on fire, maybe seeing some people perish inside the burning building as they try to escape, it's enough for me to be proactive and look for other options. And this violent death of this man, whether or not you agree with him, I'm not versed in what he talks about. It really doesn't matter. In my opinion, just having controversial opinions does not merit you being assassinated like that. Last I checked, the guy was not, approaching people with violence. He wasn't, physically oppressing people or anything like that. He was just having a difference of opinion, an opinion that so many non-Black Americans and even some Black Americans and even some other foreign Americans, they share in these ideologies as well. And that's not grounds. That is not grounds. And for some of you people, hey, okay, you're out here, well, he deserved it. Well, he was, this, it could just as well be you. Seriously. You've probably had opinions people didn't agree with. You've probably said controversial things. You probably said, you've probably had encounters or whatever. You see, that's one thing that a lot of Americans don't understand. Okay, there's a concept. It's the motto of the Three Musketeers, I think. All for one and one for all. You see, what happens to another person, it could just as well be you. And that's just a reality. That's just the reality. So you don't laugh at other people's circumstances. Okay, you don't gloat at other people's circumstances, especially if they live a similar life to you or they've done things. You know what I mean? There's people, for instance, I could use this example because, we're adults here. Some of you guys have had a night out, went for drinks, went for illicit substances. Some people have died in car crashes because they were intoxicated. Some of you guys have driven intoxicated, perhaps. Some of you guys have had one night stands with strangers that you don't know. One person may have ended up being attacked or, assaulted by someone in that situation. You got away with it. Okay, are you any better than the person who did it that met a tragic end? No. You just managed to get away with it. You see, and that's why these things, if you look at it logically, you should be concerned about what's going on around you, because the people that are becoming victims could be you, could be your family. I'm not wishing these things on you, but that's the reality. These random crimes that take place, it could be you or your family. Last week there was the girl, the girl that got onto the train and was murdered by a complete utter stranger. How many of you guys take trains? How many of you guys take buses or have taken them in the past? Get on a vehicle full of strangers with your headphones on, maybe talking on the phone, minding your business. You see, that is why the environment matters, because it could easily be you. Most of us have been in these situations, and it could be us. Yes. So I wanted to talk about this topic again. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I mean, I think my opinion is very, very consistent. It's been like this, for years. What's up, GBL? I see you. Let me just get through these comments and I'm going to wrap up. Yeah, I mean, it's just, we know this to be true. We know at the end of the day what it is, Michael Pan, but the point that I'm driving home is, you see, we can't get into this kind of environment where it's just lawless. That's dangerous for everybody involved. What if somebody decides they don't like you? What if they come up to you and they're like, you know what, I don't like your haircut. I don't like your dreadlocks. I don't like your dark skin. Or they don't, or worst of all, they don't even let you know that they've got grievances. They just plot and assault you or end your life. Or they hear you say something and they disagree and they decide, you know what, I'm gonna go get Michael Pan. Who wants to live in that kind of situation? Who wants to live in that kind of situation? Again, special shout outs to African Goddess, my members only, with our first and only super chat during this live stream. Big shout outs to the African Superstar family. Thank you guys for coming to see me. Anybody who sees the play it back, make sure that you leave me your comments in the box below. I want to hear from you. But again, these latest events that are happening, especially for people that don't live in America, and I know definitely from being in Ghana, the perception about a lot of the things that they hear sparingly, or even the things that we tell them, they think they're isolated events. They have no idea of the frequency, of how often these type of things are occurring, and that it's been ongoing. A lot of them look at the diaspora in Africa and they're just completely shocked, and they don't understand why we've made these dramatic moves, because it's safer. It's safer. And for some of us that just can't deal with the racial construct, we just want relief from that. But again, like I tell you, all Americans that are abroad, I'm telling you right now, they don't regret that move. As things continue to get more hostile in that situation, those of us that were proactive to look at other options, none of us regret that decision. I mean, your day to day gets impacted by this. Again, referencing that the HBCUs, there's kids, young people just doing their university. They're not hurting anybody. They're not political. They're not involved in anything. Now they have to be concerned. I mean, I reckon students these days, I mean, they always have to be mindful of active shooters and everywhere from elementaries all the way up to university. And it's crazy that you have to live in, and a lot of us don't realize the impact that all this additional unnecessary stress has on our lives. Because why, you can't learn in an environment where you're worried about this and that. Kids have enough on their plate in these modern day and age than to be having to worry about random acts of violence in their environments. And again, in closing, I want to say, if you have young people, you need to have these conversations with them, because a lot of times as a young person, you are oblivious to a lot of things around you, and or you think it can never be you. You need to raise children that are cognizant of their environment. You need to have discussions about what to do in certain cases. Don't leave it up to chance thinking that your child knows how to respond, or your child, will figure it out. You need to train them to their environment and let them know that, look, these are real things that can happen. This is what you do in the emergency. This is what, if people get confrontational with you, don't get confrontational back. Maybe encourage your kids to have self-defense or something like that. If they get into situations, these are things that these children of today, you need to have the conversation with them proactively, because situations are popping off and you need to know what to do and how to respond in these situations. But if you don't have the skills to respond, then that puts you at a disadvantage. I'd say if any of you guys have school age children, or nieces and nephews, grandchildren, you guys should be having these conversations. Active shooters are so popular in America, again, ranging everywhere from kindergarten all the way up to university. And so you need to make, it's unfortunate that you have to have those conversations, but you need to have that conversation with your children just in case they find themselves in that situation, what they need to do. Okay. All right. Big shout outs to you guys. Thank you so much for your time tonight. If you're new to my platform and you enjoy my commentary, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Yes. And if you want more behind the scenes, you can join members only and get access to exclusive vlogs. Like I said, early access of music videos, and all of those things. All right. Big shout outs to the African Superstar family. Take care of yourselves, guys. Be careful. Be safe. I love you. Be proactive. Exercise our mission statement, strategy, maturity, and patience in everything that you do. For those of you guys that have your overseas plans, activate that bad boy. Get a move on. You feel me? Until we meet again, stay black and true. If you ain't black, just stay true.